You know how this goes by now. It's time to have your say. Welcome to the Q&A. It's time to answer your questions in the wrestling community in another episode of AskSCW here on YouTube. A number of fantastic questions as always this week. WWE and NXT will be on the way later in the video, but we're going to kick things off all AEW this week with the big news, of course, of Andrade debuting in the company. So without further ado, our first question this week comes from official TNT2K, and they ask, where do you see Andrade in AEW? I see him in the world title picture. Also, AEW like to pair people together as like factions. Would Andrade be great addition to the Death Triangle with Lucha Bros and Pac, or his own person, or perhaps with Proud and Powerful when they eventually part ways with the Inner Circle? And just to add another question so we can do this under one, because Dylan Ketchum also asked, where does Andrade fit in with the storylines they currently have? Does he replace John Moxley with him taking time off now after Double or Nothing? Some great questions there to kick things off, and personally for me, I love some of the ideas that actually thrown there in the questions. I mean, could you see him replacing John Moxley if he's taking time off? Because they're big shoes to fill, and of course he's done a lot in AEW in the time he's been there. The ideas of actually being paired in factions as well, AEW does like to do that, so TNT, that's a great suggestion. I actually like the idea of being a part of Death Triangle, making a fourth member there. I think it'd be quite fitting. Also though, with the Proud and Powerful, if the Inner Circle were to break up at some point further down the line, that does make an interesting faction as well. So what I can see for the meantime, I can see that they've already paired him with Vicky Guerrero. Now some people have been a little bit lackluster with that idea, but I mean, it's the Guerrero name. Vicky Guerrero has done a lot in her time in wrestling. Of course, you would argue that she's well known with all sections of the wrestling community in whatever form or fashion. So I think that she could add something to Andrade and what he could bring to the table in All Elite Wrestling. For me right now, I do see him as a future main eventer. I do see him someone that is going to be pushed with a rocket to the moon if you want, but I personally don't think it should be immediately. You shouldn't put him straight into the world title picture with Kenny Omega. I don't think that would be a big mistake, because personally for me, you've seen it with other companies in the past. For example, Impact Wrestling, when they used to sign former WWE talent, particularly ones that weren't always near the top of the card or around the mid card. Andrade wasn't even really on TV towards the end of his tenure, so to come into another company and immediately go to the main event makes the rest of your roster look a little bit weak. So I would start him somewhere in the middle, for example, where you kind of have these sort of, if you want, you can see in the Battle Royals, your Face of the Revolution ladder matches sort of area, that kind of, perhaps the Cody area right now, because Cody doesn't put himself as a main event, but puts himself as a big deal in the company. That sort of area of the card I think fits perfectly. I think Cody actually would make a great first feud or opponent for Andrade in AEW, because then if he was then elevate himself further up the card in say 6 months or so, you could then turn and say this guy then does deserve to be in and around the main event, because he's proven himself to be the Andrade that we know that we've seen before WWE, or if you've only seen him in WWE, perhaps this sort of time around when he was NXT champion. So for me personally, I think big things are in the future for him. Could he be in a stable eventually? Certainly could be. I wouldn't be against the idea. I still feel like a bit of me inside wishes he could stay with WWE. He would have been a great fit for Legado del Fantasma as a fourth member. I just would have liked to have seen that. But now he's here in AEW, he's here to stay, and hopefully he can be booked and used correctly. I certainly have high hopes for him going forward, and like I say, I think you should start sort of that mid to near upper mid card area, and then you should groom him to be in and around that World Championship picture come the end of 2021. That's certainly how I would book it, and I think there is a bright future ahead. And just to finish off, do I see him in the stable? Perhaps at some point further down the line. Who would be the better fit of the ones you suggested? Perhaps they're TNT. I personally feel that maybe a part of Death Triangle, or maybe you'd have to make it, I don't know, a Death Square at that point. I don't know how that would kind of work out. Maybe Andrade could replace Pac. Maybe that could be a fun way to make that storyline there. So you can always have little twists and turns as you go along the way. But yeah, very exciting times, and we've got more Andrade questions coming up right now. And our next one then comes from Skate Uphill. With Andrade now in AEW, what would you anticipate happening at TripleMania against Kenny Omega? Fantastic question, this one. I mean, I think it's going to be built the same. The beautiful part about this, though, is that they will have a chance to have interaction on AEW TV before that event. In my opinion, maybe the last week or two, maybe they could start doing stuff on Dynamite just to help promote that. If they are going to help other promotions within the Forbidden Door, there has been countless arguments whether they've always been as helpful to other companies at this point, but you know, at the same time, I think that would be good to see that, because AEW could give a boost to what's going on there. But I think it will be all of the same, really. I mean, the good thing is 2 wrestlers now are under the same roof, but I do expect AEW to mainly continue on with their own storylines developing as they would be going. But yeah, it should be it should be an exciting match, and maybe what would be interesting, as I said in the last question, you don't just hotshot Andrade straight into that position against Kenny Omega in AEW straight away, but what could be the fallout from that is what could really benefit AEW. So that's personally the way I would look at it if it was going to be built, and I still expect at this point then AEW's Kenny Omega to retain the Mega Championship if I had to predict right now, because it felt like that big babyface story that the hometown hero would come home and dethrone Kenny Omega of that Mega Championship. At this point, I still see this belt collector storyline going on for a long time to come, and for that, now that Andrade is also a part of AEW, it just feels like that. I don't know, if Andrade wins that championship, he then has to go straight for the AEW championships. At this point, I'm kind of skeptical of how it would be booked, where Andrade would be the one going over. I think Kenny Omega keeps that heel heat, keeps the championships, and of course that belt collector gimmick carries on for at least another 3 to 6 months going on after that, because he's been Mega Champion out for a long time. He held that belt before the pandemic, so yeah, it's a good excuse if you want to get the belt off of Kenny Omega, but I don't think that's happening anytime soon. Next question by Wrestling by Waldridge. AEW's roster is just growing and growing. Do you think we'll ever see an AEW brand split for Rampage and Dynamite? Fascinating question, this one, and creative as well. I mean, AEW's roster is just growing. They've got so many talents under their books. You just almost think how people are going to get television time. And the one thing that's a benefit of a brand split is the fact that then 2 rosters are split in half, and you give the opportunity for other superstars to get TV time that perhaps wouldn't do so. And if you look at things as well, with if AEW keeps things the same way they are, you might see a lot more Kenny Omega, a lot more Cody Rhodes, and think, well, hang on, there's other superstars that deserve TV time that aren't getting it. So I do see the benefit of a brand split, but here's my thing of where I think perhaps it's not a good idea in my opinion. Although you have those shows like Dark and Dark Elevation, you can connect, say, Dynamite to Dark and Dark Elevation with Rampage, and you can kind of make that work creatively with the rosters. The only thing that I'm against with it is it's a WWE idea. It's something that WWE has done, and I think that, you know, people would criticize All Elite Wrestling if they were to go down this route, because they turn around and say, well, you're looking to try and be the alternative to WWE, yet you're doing something that WWE already does. So for me, that's my reason of why I would be against it. I kind of feel that the roster right now in All Elite Wrestling is kind of looking like WCW back in that sort of 98 time period. They had so many wrestlers on the books, and it's like they almost have a set of wrestlers that they almost were kind of like the original brand split in a way, the quiet brand split that never existed, because wrestlers would kind of be featured a lot on, you know, Nitro. You'd have ones that were more designed to go on Thunder, but then the top superstars would sort of float on both shows. So maybe that's what AEW is looking to do, and obviously with the Dark and Dark Elevation, you've kind of got those up and coming talents as well that can try and showcase their stuff on there. But you do get some of those big names as well to go on those shows to help, I suppose, draw some attention to it. But it's interesting how it will go. For me, personally, I would not be as much in favour of a brand split, just purely because of the fact that it's a WWE creation. I think AEW need to continue to do things in an original format that they are doing, and I think that's what helps them stand out, and eventually we'll see them grow further as a company. The minor drawback to this, though, of course, is there will be probably a number of talents, though, that they have on their books that eventually will struggle to get the TV time. I do think, judging off this week, you see that a couple of contracts were not renewed, Awesome Kong being one of them. I believe Shanna is the name of the other one, 2 female talents in AEW. I think sometimes we're quick to forget how long AEW's already been in existence. It's been around nearly 2 years on our TV sets this October, just a few short months away from that. And of course, some talents were signing contracts. We did get some shows early in 2019. Of course, we had the Double or Nothing, the Fyter Fest before the TV deal for Dynamite even kicked in. So I imagine if some talents aren't getting over, even though more talents are being signed up him being brought in to perhaps raise the stakes if you want. At the same time, those ones that are not quite working out, I can see AEW will start not renewing contracts. We will start seeing talent that is there under the AEW banner moving on and perhaps moving on to different promotions, whether it be Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, NWA. You may even see if one may slip through the fingers of AEW and may even go to WWE. We'll have to wait and see. It will eventually happen over time. People say, oh, everyone is just being signed from WWE going to AEW. It will eventually start happening the other way around. So it'll be interesting to see what the feedback on Twitter and places like that will be once that actually starts happening in the future. Next question comes from Jamie, the controversial one, Holmes. He's got a pretty random question this week. Like me, do you have high hopes for the potential Jake Hager-Wardlow MMA cage fight? Jake Hager and Wardlow had an underrated singles match a few months ago, and I think the chemistry will carry over to the gimmick match. You say random, I say a great question. I really like this one. I mean, of course, this gives me memories back to like the late 90s. I remember WWE at SummerSlam in 1998 did a Lions Den match for Ken Shamrock, and I don't think it's the only one they ever did actually in the company, where it was kind of, taken away from ringside. We went backstage, and there was like this kind of like mini sort of like fight den that we had, like this MMA style fight between him, Ken Shamrock, and Owen Hart, and it was really fun. It was different. It broke up the show. It gave something really exciting. And like you say, comparing here with these two wrestlers, Hager and Wardlow did have a good match. I enjoyed it when they wrestled a few months ago, so I'd be interested to see what they'd bring to the table, because of course Jake Hager you'd expect would go over in this match, and of course is expected to have the background of knowing how this match works around. But I think Wardlow, this could be an opportunity for him to also break outside of the box. It gives a chance for him to show some personality, something a bit different to what we haven't seen previously. So yeah, like yourself, I do have high hopes for how this is going to be built. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a main event actually of Dynamite, judging on how I know the next few tapings are going to be doing a little bit of things are going to be taped a little bit in advance, and as well we saw this week Dustin Rhodes actually was in the main event as well, the Bull Rope match, so I wouldn't be surprised to see if this was the main event in a couple of weeks time. And the fact that they are continuing with Inner Circle as well as the Pinnacle, some will be a bit lackluster on it, but I do see that they probably do need to finish these feuds off now individually. So for me, this is a great starting place to do so. Hager versus Wardlow, I'm looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun. This potential MMA style bout, I'm going to call it a Lions Den match, because why not? I'm still born and bred from watching wrestling in the 90s. But let me know your thoughts. What do you think about it in the comments below, and who do you see coming out on top? Personally, for me, I can't look past Jake Hager picking up the victory, but certainly I think it will be a fun match, and both talents can come out of this the other side getting over a little bit further. Elijah with our next set of questions for us next now. He's got 4 for us in total. We've got, since Andrade is now in AEW, do you think that Lio Rush is next? What do I want to see on Monday on Raw, and what do I hope to see happen? How do I feel about this new Bayley? Do we think that she's getting a new gimmick? And last but not least, Impact Wrestling. Who do I want to see join Violent by Design? Some great questions there. I suppose we should tie up the AEW stuff first then, so we move strictly onto more other companies like WWE afterwards. So with Lio Rush, my belief is he's signed with New Japan Pro Wrestling. I know he's been doing some work with MLW as well. My understanding also is that this was a handshake agreement, if I'm not mistaken, with Lio Rush and Tony Khan. So maybe this could be an idea where we will see more of Lio Rush going forward, but we didn't see anything of him on Dynamite. No real deal was made, no follow-up from Double or Nothing, where we got a follow-up with Mark Henry. We also got a debut and Andrade. There could be a thing of where too much thunder is stolen. Could there be so many in such quick succession? So for me personally, I'm not so desperate to see Lio Rush sign for AEW, purely because, as we said in previous questions, they have got a roster that's just growing and growing. I'd hate to see Lio Rush be brought in and just be someone that's used on Dark or Dark Elevation. I want to see someone that's brought in and makes a difference to those shows going forward. Perhaps when Rampage actually starts in August, maybe that's a good time then, if there is an agreement where he can come in and do more matches, then that's where he can come and showcase his talents, because I want to see him on the forefront of what AEW has to offer, rather than actually be someone that's just a spare part that's used here and there. But he's an incredible talent, Lio Rush. I was a big fan of the fact that what he did in WWE, in Ring of Honor previously, and I did pop when he did come out at Double or Nothing, because I did see this completely a left field signing. I didn't see anyone predicting that Lio Rush would be that guy. So whatever happens with Lio, I wish him all the various big success. But for the meantime, if he was to sign with All Elite Wrestling, I would want it to be further down the line. I'll go with Impact Wrestling next then, with Violent by Design. I don't want to see too many people join this stable, but one person that I think would be a great fit is Alexander Wolf. He's now been released from WWE and NXT. I think he would have a lot to offer the Violent by Design stable. He's kind of got the look of someone that really fit in with that kind of stable that they have, and plus Wolf and Eric Young have history together under the original Sanity gimmick. Believe it or not, Madman Fulton also was under that original gimmick, who's also in Impact Wrestling. But for me personally, I would say Alexander Wolf would fit the group very, very well. I wouldn't want to add too many more members because of the fact that I think it could oversaturate. And I think if you start taking odd members, say like Dina keeps losing matches and you get rid of him, I think that could be dangerous because it starts getting to like Nexus, NWO territory where they were fantastic at the beginning. But if you keep swapping the members around, it kind of starts losing the appeal to what is with that group originally. So for me, I would just add one more member, and that member for me would be Alexander Wolf. As for Raw this week, I just want a consistently well-written show, something that's not going to arguably boring or doesn't make sense. I've not really been the biggest Raw fan of late. I do a lot of actually Raw reviews on Jonesy Chats Wrestling each and every week, so if you do subscribe to his channel, you probably already have a good idea of what my thoughts are with Raw. But what we do know with Raw this week, we've got 3 things that have been pre-advertised. Signing the dotted line for Hell in a Cell, we've got Bobby Lashley versus Drew McIntyre. I'm not sure if that is meant to be a Hell in a Cell match, but personally it would make a lot of sense because it's a feud closer, and this needs to end these two. We can't have these two continually facing each other off week after week. The thing for me is that I feel that Bobby Lashley should retain the championship as well at this stage. Of course, we'll see what happens as we go further into storylines before I make a full prediction on it. But that's certainly something that we can see from Raw. I think if it was me, we have that normal contract signing, but I would like to see something fun at the end of it just to get me a bit more hyped and excited for the match. Maybe it's the announcement, it's the Hell in a Cell match. Whatever they can do to just try and make me excited for the match would be the first and foremost. One thing I am excited about though, we've got a tag team battle royale which I'm looking forward to. 5 teams have been seemingly announced for this. We've got the Lucha House Party, the Viking Raiders, RK Bro, I'm going to go with that from now, the New Day, and as well we've got Mace and T-Bar as there. So what I'm guessing they're trying to do is to try and make the next #1 contenders for the tag team championships. In my opinion, RK Bro, it's too soon. I would save that for when fans are there. Personally, I would save it till SummerSlam. If WWE are clever in the booking, I would make the finalisation of RK Bro versus the New Day at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. Actually make these 2 teams cancel each other out. Therefore, we get another tag team that can be arguably fed to AJ and almost at this stage. If it was my choice, it would be the Viking Raiders that would go over in this, but I have a feeling Mason T-Bar will get the victories. They got a victory last week, and T-Bar has been open on Twitter saying that they are coming for the tag team championships. Also, AJ and almost have kind of, in a weird way, turned babyface, not with any explanation, in recent months since winning the tag team championships, and of course with the Elias Jackson Riker tag team been playing the heels as well. So it kind of feels that AJ and almost have been babyfaces for the recent time. So I guess it would be Mace and T-Bar, and that could be as soon as the pay-per-view, which I would hope really would have been held off to Money in the Bank. But it is what it is. I mean, if you get AJ and almost to go through these tag teams, eventually when they do drop these tag team championships, at least that they can say they've had programs with everyone on the Raw roster. So in that way, I've not got a complaint with that. I think it should be fun, it should be exciting. But what we do know also is Alexa Bliss and Lily. Shayna Baszler is going onto the playground again. I'm not a big fan of this stuff. I don't like that Shayna Baszler lost last week as well to Reginald. I'm worried that we're leading to a match with Lily and Shayna, which just seems stupid to me, or even worse, some sort of mind control and Shayna ends up being with Alexa Bliss or something. I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm feeling what's going on at this present time with that storyline. So for me, I would like just to build Bliss versus Shayna. I think that's the only logical sense that I can get out of these two interacting with each other again. Build stuff for the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. That's what needs to happen for me going forward. As for Bayley, she's laughing a lot, isn't she? But I'm not sure I'm getting the joke, if I'm being brutally honest. I think Bayley's a fantastic in-ring worker. She's a fantastic character, but the laugh is giving me a bit of go-away heat. I'm not sure if I was feeling what they were doing last week on SmackDown. You can see they're kind of going with this slightly bullying angle at the moment, which I'm sure we'll see with the hero will overcome the bully in the end. I think Bianca Belair will find a way to get past Bayley at Hell in a Cell. But I don't see we get a full new gimmick with Bayley. I think this is just for this program, and then Bayley will go back to a ding dong hellos straight after this program with Bianca Belair. But no, it should be an interesting week ahead for WWE. They need to build a lot for Hell in a Cell. That's what we need to come from it. But certainly, it's good to know we've got a few things ahead for Monday Night Raw, and it'd be interesting to know if you're looking forward to the show in the comments below. Noob and Cove, our next question is now here in AskSCW. Where will the recent WWE releases go, and will there be more WWE releases in the summer? What will become of WWE in the next 5 to 10 years, and how will WWE fix the current state of its women's division? Well, let's start with the women's division show because, yeah, it's a bit of a mess right now. I mean, as I said, I'm not a fan of the direction of Alexa Bliss and Shayna Baszler in the last question. I'm a fan of the performers. I think performers are fantastic, and I think a lot of the performers in the women's division are very good, but I think there has been a bit of a disconnect with the writing of the women's division in WWE for quite some time, and I do feel a reshuffle is needed. I think some sort of draft, some sort of shake-up in WWE in general, I think would help it. Not for every division, but I think would help the women's most of all. I think also the women's tag team division seems to be a bit of a mess. And there are rumours that we're going to get some NXT call-ups, so I expect more than anything, I expect the NXT women's tag team division to probably be gutted and actually brought up to the main roster to actually fill in a couple of tag teams until Raw or SmackDown get bored and start to do breakup angles. But let's hope there's not any more releases. But certainly I think shake-ups is definitely something that's needed with that women's division. But it's such a shame because there's a lot of rematches as well, and I think that there is potential to have some fresh matches, some fresh programs on Raw and SmackDown, but we just don't seem to see it. I'm actually not too downhearted about SmackDown side of things. I think SmackDown is booked okay overall with Bianca Belair. I mean, I'm still not a fan with the Bayley laughing, but with those two performers, they're fantastic, and overall, it's watchable TV. Sasha Banks as well, when she's been there, has worked really, really well. I'm a fan of Carmella. I feel sorry for Liv Morgan. She's the only one left now from the original Riot Squad trio, but I do think that she was on TV this week. She's back to the old music. Hopefully WWE can figure out what they want to do with her character and they can push her going forward. There's definitely talent there, so I'd like to see how that is going to be used in and amongst WWE. And of course we have Natalya and Tamina, the current women's tag team champions, just kind of don't really have an opponents on SmackDown. So I can see one or two additions being brought to the SmackDown roster, and we can see then what will happen with the Raw side. I mean, I do think I can see Io Shirai being called up. Not that I'm a bit worried and skeptical of how she'll be booked when it comes to Raw and SmackDown, but she seems to be the most obvious name that would get the call up to fill the void and be that person they can push quite high up the card, and especially on SmackDown, the matches there would be incredible. On Raw, I mean, Charlotte Flair has so many views that she could go into that she's not had. Asuka, as you know, we've said on previous videos, I think needs to freshen up something. Maybe a trade to SmackDown would do her a favour, or a heel turn nonetheless. Something needs to be done there. And let's not forget, Becky Lynch will return eventually, whether it's on Raw or SmackDown. So there is ways of fixing things. It can be a short-term fix, but maybe it's going to take something that's a medium-term fix for WWE to do. Maybe it involves not just call-ups, maybe a reshuffle of the deck, and that will help it going forward. But as for the ones that have been released this week, really sad to see. As I've said in previous videos, of course, you can go and check them out if you haven't already. But where will they go next is a good question. Braun Strowman, for me, I think will be back in WWE one day, but I have stressed that I think it would be interesting to see what he'd be like in one of the other companies. I think Impact Wrestling would book him as their megastar, their one. Of course, I think him and W. Morrissey would be an interesting program if they were to do that. But I think AEW would benefit probably the most from going there. Of course, also being on TNT, sure would be the most appealing. Plus, Paul White and Mark Henry have gone there as well. Two big men that have gone through booking in WWE, where I would turn around and say sometimes they were booked to the best of their ability, sometimes not the best of their ability. And Braun has kind of gone through that experience in his time with WWE. So to go to AEW, I think he would be booked better, and I do think he would be one of the main attractions, and I think it would really work. So for me, I hope that he goes to AEW, but I would say that if I had to predict it, I had read that he was interested in bodybuilding and stuff like that. I think he takes a break, maybe does a bit of movies or something. I think he comes back to WWE in about a year to 18 months, because he's already made main events when they want to bring him back in, and weirdly enough, a break might not be the worst thing for Braun Strowman. It seems the worst right now, but he was not being booked well for years. I want the Monster back from 2017, early 2018, before he went to become a Raw Tag Team Champion with Nicholas. I want to see pre-Braun Strowman, and I think that Braun Strowman, if that was to be brought back on TV after a lengthy break, It could be presented the monster, ready main eventer. I think in the long term, it actually could be a benefit for him. Santana Garrett, I think, will be going to Impact Wrestling. I feel very sorry for her. She was due apparently to have a SmackDown debut this week before the release. It seems monstrous, doesn't it, to think that they were going to get on TV and then it gets taken away. But I mean, for someone that did come onto TV and it got taken away was Aleister Black. What was going on there? I mean, all that time put into the gimmick and all the vignettes that we got, and then he came and attacked Big E, and then he's gone. It makes no sense whatsoever. And we were promised like new theme music and everything. I thought there was a lot of potential that was going to be into this new Aleister Black character, but now Tommy End is actually released. He's going to go into the big wide world. I can see him definitely prospering wherever he goes. I think he's got a unique look, a unique attributes of what he brings to the table. I really think he will be a major success, and I think AEW is the likely place that he'll go. He could go to Impact, he could go to New Japan. I wouldn't be surprised if part of the Forbidden Door arrangements and agreements that perhaps he does definitely a bit of Japan. I'm not sure with Impact, but I think Tommy End definitely goes to Dynamite, and I think he will be a top star there. I don't see him going back to WWE personally, if you wanted my point of view on that. Buddy Murphy, I think could go to any of those three companies we just mentioned, but I hope he goes to Impact Wrestling. I think he could be a top star there. I think the best kept secret needs to actually no longer be a secret. I think he needs to be someone that is exposed, that we know about, and I think if he goes to someone like Impact, I think he can really raise the stakes, raise his name value up, and I think that whatever happens then to him after that, whether he's there for Impact in the short term as a stepping stone, or whether he's there as the long term becomes a world champion, I think would be great for him. I think it would be very beneficial. So I hope for Murphy that that's where he lands, and I do think for the X division there's so many great matches you can have with Murphy in that division, and of course maybe even can push himself higher, like I say, towards the top of the card. He definitely has the attributes to do so. Ruby Riott, of course, I think that I hope she goes to Impact Wrestling, because I think that she would be fitting in very well with their Knockouts division. Great personalities, they all seem to stand out in their own way, and she's great in ring worker as well. I think she'd add some real, she would add some real star power to that division. I think anyone that gets Ruby actually for their women's division would really benefit. I'm sure Ring of Honor would be sniffing around NWA, even AEW, I think would really utilise wanting to have her on the roster. It depends what is best for her and where she wants to be. I wouldn't be surprised if she goes to Dynamite, AEW, but I hope that she goes to Impact Wrestling. And let's talk about Lana as well. I think she'll probably join her husband in AEW. Of course, Miro did actually make a reference to her on Dynamite this week, so I wouldn't be surprised to see that. Of course, Lana, she does a lot of TikTok, a lot of influencing stuff as well, so perhaps that might be an avenue she might choose to go down instead of wrestling. But if she wants to go into a promotion, I can only see her going to AEW. Will there be more releases before SummerSlam? I really hope not. There has been rumours going around, people throwing names willy-nilly in and around. I hope it's not true. I hope, and I must say, I haven't seen any credible sources saying that there will be more releases, but it's WWE. You wouldn't be surprised. That's all I would say. And the thing is, with the latest releases that we've had, it really adds shock value, because you start thinking, well, should I be invested in these characters that I'm invested in? Because one week they're in a world title match, or they're, had this big build to bring them back onto TV, or they were featured on TV on that last week's episode in some prominent role, and the next week they're not with the company. That could happen to anyone. It really must make people feel uneasy. So, yeah, I really hope for the talent's sakes. I mean, fans are coming back as well. Let's hope there's no more releases, because we don't want to see that, do we? I know it happens. I know it's a part of life, but I want to see people stay in their positions, and I want to see everyone prosper. Everyone's worked so hard during this pandemic era to keep things going. And now that fans are coming back, I want them to get that joy. I want them to get that feeling of performing in front of live crowds again and doing things the way it should be. We were all itching back to get back to how things were before, and I'm sure for those wrestlers, those superstars as well, they've probably felt very lucky and fortunate they've been able to continue working during this time, but to actually do it the way it's meant to be done, with the real reactions from fans, I hope for them that they get the opportunity. Your next question, Owen, what's going to be of WWE in the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, will it be sold is one question, because some people say with these releases they're trying to balance the books, make things look as profitable, as good as possible, so that it would be in best interest for a sale. Vince is in his he's in his mid-70s or so now, so I mean, maybe it's not out of the realm of possibility. He thinks, well, let's just sell it on. I've done it. I've done what I wanted to do with it. You wouldn't be surprised with the way the strategy is, with what we've got going on, and with Nick Khan coming in as well, making all these arguably great deals for WWE. I mean, even though I hated Zombie Mania, it brought money to the company, and of course with the great deals of Peacock and stuff like that, with TV ratings and stuff, will WWE become a streamable product where we don't have to worry about TV ratings anymore? Is it something that's taken up by Peacock permanently, or it switches over to something where it's bought out by Fox or Disney, and that's where we get that product? So it's hard to wonder where it will be going forward, but I'm going to be touching more on this topic in the next couple of questions, so let's stick along, because these next questions kind of gel very well together. Lorenzo Carrillo of our next question is now: is Roman Reigns truly the best character in today's wrestling? If not, who? And if Vince does decide on selling WWE, would it be the best business decision, and could WWE be in better hands with someone else if that were to happen? So let's quickly touch on Roman Reigns. Yes, with ease the best character going on in wrestling right now, in my opinion. Everything seems to add value, and it's all based on character. His character dictates the matches of what we see. We don't just have someone doing moves for moves' sakes. Everything happens in the character work of Roman Reigns, and that then works within storyline, and what he's doing with the Usos is just simply genius. I don't think anyone currently right now is on the level of that storyline. Yes, Kenny Omega with the belt collector is close, it's very well put together with the belt collector, but I do see that sometimes there is some bad that goes with good, where everything I see with Roman right now, I just see good. And the stuff this week, even with Jey and Jimmy Uso on SmackDown, with the failure of the tag team championships being screwed in the match, and then Roman almost calling Jey Jimmy and saying, well, it's not going to matter soon, because of the fact that, again, Jey Uso is no longer main event Jey. He's not standing out next to the tribal chief. He's gone back to what he was before. It's just a fantastic storyline all the way round. But going on, if Vince was to sell WWE, would it be the best business decision, and would it make a better product? I suppose we won't know until we see it, and I think it depends where it goes. I mean, if it was to go to someone like Disney, for example, does we become all character based? Is it gonna, I've seen people rumoring like it could be like a Marvel universe or something, which I think for me would not be to my personal taste, but you would argue that perhaps it would be more, you would have the chance of having perhaps more supernatural stuff if you're into that storytelling in 2021. You will get more characters, you probably get more fantasy kind of style like you would get in the 80s, and it would be probably permanently a PG product. I wouldn't turn around and say that you'd get the edgy days ever come back into wrestling. If someone like Fox was to get it, I imagine it would be continue to present more sports based, which I think right now WWE kind of has a bit of a shuffle of everything. You could argue and say, what is your criteria? Who are you trying to cater for? You're trying to cater for everyone by adding little bits of stuff, but it's a bit of a mishmash put together, isn't it? But when you've got Pat McAfee on commentary, excellent NFL, you've got Jimmy Smith, of course, on Raw commentary now. I think did a fantastic job, by the way, for his first week. He really presents that fight feel. You can tell he's done MMA in the background. When you've got that's great for people like Fox, or for people like that, if they were to get hold of that. But if NBC gets hold of it, or if it's Peacock, maybe it continues where it can have the idea of what we saw as old representation, where we get a bit of character work, but we get the sports side of it. It's sports entertainment together, and maybe at one point it becomes an edgier product again. It may be a situation as well where it doesn't matter about TV ratings, because it becomes a streamable service. If someone buys it outright, they can do what they want with it. They can put it on TV, they can put it on stream sites. They'll have full control, or will they? Will Vince still have some input of what's going on? We will not know until it happens, unfortunately. But one thing is for sure, for the first time ever, I am open to the idea that it could happen. I always dismissed it, said no, it will never happen. There is a chance, I think, maybe with the way that things are currently going on right now, that I wouldn't be surprised if someone was to put money in front of Vince, that he would say yes. And sort of a continuation on then from the last question from DWE, are the ratings for WWE being made as a bigger concern than what it actually is, as the ratings today don't matter as much, as so many people watch it online and through YouTube and Twitter and many other forms of media? Well, that's the thing, you see. Yes, I mean, it's not a great sign that the TV ratings are down, because obviously WWE currently still is presented as a television show. You could try and say that the format of it, though, is outdated, and that ratings to a degree are outdated, because like you say, people look at things in a different format, in a different way. If you don't have 3 hours to watch a Raw, which many of us complain that Raw is a 3-hour show, we do not want to sit there and watch for 3 hours, well, why sit there and watch it for 3 hours? You can go on YouTube, see the clips, go on WWE.com, you get a format of the show, probably in about 20 minutes of seeing what are supposed to be the key things that they've given away to online. So there are ways and means of seeing the product without really watching the product. It's for those hardcore, die-hard fans that have to see every single moment of what is going on and dissect every part of storyline, that watch it probably for the consistent time, and those are the ones that are moaning and everybody else is happy. I mean, it's hard to know what it is, but I do think personally, television, you can see more and more, it is becoming an outdated service. People are into more streaming, more like your Netflix, and we can say for Americans, obviously your Peacocks and whatever you're watching, Hulu. You know, people are using that sort of format, so that could be the way going forward. I don't know how that would kind of work if it was to transition completely into wrestling, because you're not going to get a season bundle in one of 24 episodes, are you? That would be a bit weird, but I imagine you just get your Raw on your Netflix or your Hulu or your Peacock or whatever, and you carry on that way. So yeah, I do think it's being made more of a bigger deal than what it needs to be, but at the same time, I would argue as well that if you watch other things on TV that, you know, for example, like basketball and NFL, those things in America that are getting consistently fantastic ratings, you would turn around and say that, yeah, it is in a decline and the product isn't as good as what it was. A better product would put out better ratings in this market still, regardless whether TV ratings matter as much anymore. So I think it goes sort of hand in hand, but at the same time, I would agree with you, ratings aren't as important as they used to be, and if there are other forms of media, people will choose to use them. And it does look like that on these other forms of social media, the WWE is prospering. I mean, of course, you look at YouTube, they do fantastic with their views, the subscriptions are very, very high. So from that point, you can't argue with it, but from a point on television, I do think perhaps more people would turn and say, well, maybe they won't watch the YouTube clips as much if what we get on TV is better. So, yeah, it's a bit of both in my opinion, but I do agree with you, ratings not as important. And as a fan, really, I just want to enjoy wrestling. I don't care how many people are watching it, really. Last question this week coming from Mike, a Tanhabs Mike, and he's got 2 great questions here from us now from NXT. Cameron Grimes is one of the most entertaining guys in NXT. His current gimmick is gold and has gotten over organically. What has Triple H done, in your opinion, to make it work as well as it has been? And he does say, how would you book the 5-way match for the NXT title at TakeOver in your house, as this could go in many different directions and set new programs? This will be a match of the night by far. Yeah, I think this will be match of the night by far. It's definitely the thing I'm most looking forward to on TakeOver that's been put together. Because like I say, it can go in so many different directions. We'll actually be dropping my NXT TakeOver in your house predictions video in the week. It'll be on Wednesday. It's going to be live for the first time. So the first time we'll be doing one of those. So make sure to go and check that out. But like you say, it can be booked so many different ways. But how would I book it is probably the most key question then for this day, rather than actually a prediction. It depends what you want to do. It depends if Karrion Kross is staying around. We know NXT call-ups to the main roster could be happening. Is Kross going to be one of them? Because we do know that Kross, more than likely, if he is called up to Raw SmackDown, he is more likely going to be one of the more successful stories to immediately get over and be pushed well in WWE, rather than someone that's going to be at the bottom of the ladder and having to work their way up. So if they want to get the title of Kross, he doesn't need to be involved in the decision, so this is a perfect way of doing it. Will we get that fairy tale underdog story of Kyle O'Reilly winning the championship this soon? I don't think so. For me, it's one of those heels that should win the championship to do so. For me, if I was booking it, I think that Adam Cole, being the one that's kind of slid in the side door to get himself into this match when he shouldn't have been in it to begin with, to then walk away at the end of it, the NXT champion, I think makes the most controversial sense, because you get him back at the top of the card as well. That way then, I think if Kyle O'Reilly does eventually become NXT champion, I think it would be good if he was to beat Adam Cole for it, and you can actually use the UE as part of that storyline, as we've been discussing for months. So that certainly would be the way that I probably would book it if I was to go down that avenue. As for Cameron Grimes, yeah, it's been organic. It's really good. I think what they've done with Cameron Grimes, they saw the initial push of what they did with him when he came in, and saw that whiny character that they could sort of poke fun at it when he was the heel, and then they kind of added this other dynamic with the Rich gimmick that they've given him now since, what was it, like November, December time. They give him cool entrance music as well, which I think is very important for superstars if you want to get them over. And they've kind of used him in that goofy way with this gimmick. They've given him a package deal rather than just being that guy he's good in ring, but you can have a bit of a laugh with him. To add these other layers to him they've done in the last couple of months, and now adding the Ted DiBiase stuff in there as well, it's just made him the complete character. It's a package deal that you get with him, and I think people then don't just get him think, oh, he's the funny guy, or he's a good in-ring worker, or oh, he's got that gimmick now and the music's okay. It's like everything together. You kind of go, I care about what we're doing with Cameron Grimes. And now we've kind of got to a point where you almost see where you feel a little bit sorry for him of what's been going with Ted DiBiase. It was kind of like, oh, how funny is this that he's been outdone every turn? But now you're like, he actually says he respects Ted DiBiase, and he wants to be, that $1 million guy. He wants to carry on that legacy. And now that LA Knight's come into the picture as well, you kind of feel sorry for him. The fact that he's not actually, he might not get the position again. He's been that guy that's been the butt of the joke, and it's changed a different dynamic to that character. So it's just evolving things as it goes along. It's taking something, adding something more, and continuing to do so over a number of weeks and months, and all of a sudden, before you know it, like you say, he's one of the more important characters on TV, and now he's got this singles match on TakeOver. Should be really fun to see, and I'm interested to see where it's going to go. I believe the $1 Million Championship will come back, and I actually think at this moment, if I was to say without giving a prediction, I think the best thing to do at that actual pay-per-view, and it would benefit LA Knight as well, is for Knight to go over, him to become the $1 Million Prodigy, and Cameron Grimes to have to deal with it, because we're going to feel sympathy for the guy, and we're going to want him to get revenge and payback, and we're going to care more about that character. It could be like a closing chapter, almost like, Heath Slater and his kids. Once he won the tag team titles, it kind of fizzled out. I kind of want to see it continue on with Grimes. So for me, as much as it's nice to have that sort of happy ending, I think for me, for continuation of the story and seeing his journey to prosper further, it would make it even more sense if we were to feel vulnerable and sad for him. So yeah, I kind of hope at the moment he loses a TakeOver. But yeah, very interesting question I wanted to finish off this week there. But hope you've enjoyed AskSCW as always. Like I say, if you want to be involved in the next episode, you can drop a comment here on YouTube. Use the hashtag AskSCW with the question, then I know to include it in that next episode. Or you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. All should be coming up on your screen right about now. You can leave a comment on there as well to me. But yeah, that's all for me. And like I say, go and check out previous videos as well. I have touched a lot on the WWE releases this week. Of course, the latest live Q&A was with Tom Colohue. Doesn't make on check that out. I did do a live Q&A on Josie Chats Wrestling as well on his channel, so that was a lot of fun to do. Thanks Josie for having us on for that. And also Rated R for Wrestling as well was on another retro review this week. Also Night of Champions 2009, which is a fun show to go back and watch and review as well. So both of those are also featured in my playlist on appearing on other YouTube channels, so you can go and see both of them together there. And as well, coming up this week, we've got the NXT predictions video that will be coming up for NXT TakeOver in Your House, and of course a live Q&A going to return once again this week, and I'm very much looking forward to all of those videos. But that's all from me anyway. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. You've been watching SCW here on YouTube. Take care. All the best.